You're about to lose everything, Ava said, her voice calm but firm. The room froze. CEO Richard Thompson looked up from his paperwork, eyes narrowing as he saw the woman standing in the doorway. His eyebrow twitched. She was just a janitor, a cleaner who'd been scrubbing floors in the office building for weeks. What could she possibly know about business deals? What do you mean? Richard asked, his tone dripping with skepticism. Ava stepped forward, her voice never wavering. The clause you're about to sign, it's a trap. If you go through with this deal, it'll ruin the company. The silence in the room thickened as the executives around the table exchanged confused glances. Ava wasn't supposed to be here. She was just the cleaner. What was she doing speaking up in front of the board? Richard sighed and waved a dismissive hand. This is a high-level meeting. You should leave. But Ava didn't move. She stood there, eyes locked with his, not showing any sign of fear. I know what I'm talking about, she said. I've read enough contracts to know a mistake when I see one. If you sign this, you're handing over everything. The CEO, despite his experience, felt a flicker of doubt. He couldn't understand why this woman, who should have been invisible, was so sure. Was she just trying to make a scene? Or was she genuinely right? He brushed the thought aside, too proud to listen. Get out of here, Richard snapped. I'm busy. Ava turned to leave but paused at the door, her voice cutting through the air like a sharp knife. You'll regret it, she said. The door clicked shut behind her. As Ava walked away, her steps were steady, but in the boardroom, chaos was beginning to brew. Minutes later, as Richard sat back down, he couldn't shake the nagging feeling that maybe, just maybe, she had been right. He shrugged it off. What did a janitor know about multi-million-dollar deals? Hours later, the deal that Richard had been so sure of began to unravel. One by one, the clients started backing out. The phone lines were buzzing with apologies and rejections. The numbers on the spreadsheets were turning red. Panic spread through the room. Richard's heart raced as he tried to salvage what was left of the deal. But it was too late. Ava's warning had come true. The clause she had pointed out was a fatal flaw, and now the company was on the brink of disaster. Richard's mind raced back to the moment when he dismissed her. He had been so certain of his own judgment, so sure that someone like her didn't have the knowledge to see the problem. And yet, she had. His fingers hovered over his phone, considering whether to reach out to her. But the pride that had kept him from listening earlier was now keeping him silent. Ava had been right, and he had ignored her. He couldn't help but wonder, had his arrogance cost him everything? It had been hours since the deal started to unravel, and the panic in the boardroom was palpable. Richard Thompson paced back and forth, phone pressed against his ear, his mind racing. The numbers on the spreadsheet were flashing red, and every call he made to salvage the deal came back with one word: no. As his frustration grew, a voice echoed in his mind, Ava's warning. His jaw clenched. How had he missed it? How had he been so blind to something so obvious? Meanwhile, Ava was at the back of the building, doing what she always did. She cleaned. Her movements were fluid, efficient, yet there was an air of calm around her. She had no idea what was happening in that boardroom. She wasn't concerned. She had warned them. She had done what she could. As she finished wiping down the conference room windows, a familiar figure approached her. It was Veronica Ellison, the hotel manager, her heels clicking sharply on the marble floor. Veronica had always been kind to Ava, but today her expression was different. There was a weight in her eyes. Ava, I need to talk to you, Veronica said, her voice low. Ava paused, looking up from her work. Is everything okay? She asked. Veronica hesitated for a moment, glancing around the empty hallway. I know you're busy with your shift, but I need to ask you something. Richard, he's a mess. He's trying to save a deal, and no one knows what to do. They're saying it's your advice that could have saved them. Ava blinked, taken aback by the words. She had no idea the CEO was struggling. She had only been trying to help, to warn him of the disaster waiting to happen. What exactly happened? She asked cautiously. Veronica shook her head, exhaling sharply. The deal's falling apart. And Richard, he's not taking it well. Ava, I hate to say this, but there's a lot of pride in that room. No one expected you to be right. But now, they're looking for answers. Everyone's pointing fingers. The investors are gone. The board is furious. And they're saying you had the answer all along. Ava felt a wave of disbelief wash over her. She never wanted to be in the spotlight. She had warned them, but it was never about seeking recognition. It was about doing what was right. I don't understand, Ava said quietly. I'm just a cleaner. Why are they turning to me now? Veronica's gaze softened. Because sometimes, the people with the least power see the truth when others are too blind to notice. You saw what they didn't, Ava? That's why they're all in crisis now. Ava stood still for a moment, the weight of Veronica's words sinking in. She had always kept her head down, focused on her work. But now, in this quiet moment, she realized that sometimes, the most important voices come from the most unexpected places. As Ava turned to go back to her work, Veronica called after her. If you ever need anything at all, don't hesitate to ask. Ava nodded, a small smile playing at the corner of her lips. It wasn't about the deal. It wasn't about the money. It was about doing what was right. And for the first time, she felt a sense of purpose beyond the walls she cleaned every day. Ava had just finished her shift when she felt a tap on her shoulder. Turning, she found herself face to face with Richard Thompson. His usual confident demeanor had faded, replaced by a look of exhaustion and frustration. His hair was disheveled, and the stern expression that usually commanded attention had softened. Ava, he began, his voice lower than usual, I owe you an apology. Ava raised an eyebrow, unsure of where this was going. You don't owe me anything, she replied simply, her tone neutral. Richard took a deep breath, his eyes avoiding hers for a moment. No, I do. I dismissed you in that meeting. I didn't listen to your advice. And now, look where we are. Ava felt a small pang of satisfaction, but she didn't let it show. She'd known this moment would come. People like Richard rarely admitted when they were wrong. I told you, she said quietly. I saw the problem in the deal. I'm not trying to be right. I just wanted to help. Richard finally met her gaze. I've spent years making decisions, thinking I knew what was best. I never once considered that someone like you, someone with so little, could see what I missed. Ava stayed silent, letting his words sink in. She had never been one to seek recognition or validation. She had always worked quietly, doing her best, no matter how invisible she felt. But now, in this moment, she realized the impact her small act of speaking up had made. Richard took a step closer, his expression serious. We've lost a lot. I can't change that. But I'm asking you, Ava, would you be willing to help me fix this? I need someone who can see what I don't. Someone who can look beyond the surface. Ava hesitated, her mind racing. She wasn't sure what kind of help Richard expected from her, but there was something in his voice, something that made her consider the possibility. You want me to work with you? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. Richard nodded. Yes, I need someone who sees the bigger picture, who isn't afraid to challenge me, to tell me the truth, even when I don't want to hear it. Ava felt the weight of his words. She had never imagined this would happen. She had always been the one cleaning up after the messes of others. Now, it seemed like the tables were turning. I'll help you, she said after a long pause, her voice steady. But this won't be easy. You'll have to trust me. Richard nodded again, the faintest hint of a smile tugging at the corner of his lips. I trust you more than I ever have trusted anyone in this room. Ava didn't know if that was true, but she knew one thing for sure. This was no longer just about the deal. It was about something much bigger, about proving that sometimes, the most important voices come from the least expected places. She had no idea where this path would take her, but for the first time in a long time, she felt like she was finally seen. Ava's first day working alongside Richard was nothing like she imagined. She had always kept to herself, sticking to her routine and staying in the background. But now, in the heart of the corporate world, she was expected to contribute in ways she had never anticipated. The boardroom felt like a different universe, a space filled with people who spoke a language she was still learning. Richard had tasked her with reviewing the documents and contracts that the team had overlooked. Ava wasn't sure what exactly they expected her to find, but she had always been good at seeing patterns, at spotting the details others missed. As she sifted through the paperwork, she noticed something. A small discrepancy, buried deep in one of the agreements. It was subtle, easily overlooked, but to Ava, it screamed out. She marked it down, and, after hours of poring over the contracts, she made her way to Richard's office. The door was slightly ajar, and she knocked lightly. Come in, Richard's voice called from inside. When Ava entered, he looked up from his desk, surprised to see her there. What have you got for me? He asked. Ava handed him the marked paper. There's a clause here that could cause us more trouble than we realize. If we don't address it now, It will come back to bite us later. Richard's brow furrowed as he scanned the document. I didn't see this, he muttered under his breath. Ava nodded. It's easy to miss. But it's there. I think it's important. Richard leaned back in his chair, running a hand through his hair. How do you know this? I mean, you're not a lawyer. How did you catch this? Ava met his gaze. I've been reading contracts for years. It's not about being a lawyer. It's about knowing what to look for. Richard stared at her for a moment, his eyes searching hers as if trying to figure out how a woman who cleaned floors could know so much. Finally, he exhaled and nodded. You were right. This could have cost us everything. Ava didn't say anything. She had no interest in being praised or recognized. She just wanted to do her job. Well, to help. Richard leaned forward, his eyes intense. Ava, I need you to help me fix this. I trust you more than anyone in this company right now. Ava blinked, a bit taken aback by his words. You trust me? She asked quietly. Richard nodded. Yes, I've been wrong about a lot of things, but I'm starting to realize I need someone who isn't afraid to speak up. Someone who sees the truth, no matter how hard it is to hear. Ava didn't know what to say. For the first time in her life, she was being asked to use her knowledge, her instincts, in a way that felt important. I'll help, she said finally, her voice steady. But this is just the beginning. We have a long way to go. Richard smiled slightly, the first genuine smile she had seen from him. Then let's get started. Together. Ava sat at her small desk, surrounded by a mountain of paperwork. The office was quieter than usual, the hum of the city outside barely audible through the thick glass windows. Richard had left her alone to work, giving her the space to continue reviewing the contracts. She had learned more in these past few days than she had ever expected. There was a sense of purpose now, a feeling that, despite her position, her contributions mattered. As she sifted through the pages, Ava noticed something that immediately caught her attention. Another mistake, another flaw buried deep in the fine print. This time, it wasn't as obvious as the last. She frowned, scanning the text carefully. She could feel the weight of the moment, the sense that this could either make or break everything they had worked for. She pulled out her phone and quickly dialed Richard's number. Richard, I think I found another issue, she said when he picked up. What is it? He asked, his voice tired but attentive. There's another clause here that could cause problems down the line. It's about the timeline for the project deliverables. If we don't address this, we might lose key partners. It's hidden in the contract like the last one, but it's just as dangerous. Richard didn't respond immediately, and Ava could feel the silence stretching on the other end of the line. She wasn't sure if he was still processing everything she had said, or if he was simply taking a moment to let it all sink in. Finally, he spoke. You're right, he said. I didn't see that one either. I'm coming in. Stay there. A few minutes later, Richard walked into the office, his usual stride filled with purpose. Ava stood up, handing him the contract with the newly identified issue highlighted. Richard took the paper, his brow furrowed as he quickly read through the clause. This could ruin everything. You really caught this. Ava nodded. I told you, Richard. I'm not just a cleaner. I've been paying attention. I've seen things that others haven't. This is what I do. He paused, looking at her as if seeing her for the first time. I know I haven't always given you the credit you deserve, but you've saved this company more times than I can count. I'm sorry for doubting you. Ava felt a lump in her throat, but she swallowed it down. This was the moment she had been waiting for, the moment she wasn't just the invisible cleaner anymore. I don't need your apology, Richard. I just need you to trust me. That's all. He nodded, a genuine respect in his eyes now. I do trust you, he said, and I'm going to make sure you get the recognition you deserve. You've earned it. Ava didn't say anything. She wasn't doing this for the recognition. She was doing it because it was the right thing to do. For the first time in a long time, she felt like she was exactly where she needed to be. Ava sat in her small office, the sound of the city outside barely audible through the thick glass windows. She had become accustomed to the quiet hum of the building. After weeks of collaboration, the situation had changed. Richard was no longer just the CEO of the company to her. He was someone she had come to respect, someone who was finally starting to understand the value of her perspective. Things were different now, and with the latest contract finally sorted, Ava felt like she had done her part. But something was still nagging at her. She looked at the phone on her desk. She had made it this far, but there was one more thing she had to do, something she hadn't quite figured out how to address yet. The phone rang, snapping her out of her thoughts. She looked at the screen. It was Richard. Her heart skipped a beat, but she quickly answered. Ava, I need you to meet me in the conference room. We have to talk. Richard's voice was serious, but there was an edge of something else there, something that made her stomach tighten. She grabbed the papers from her desk and walked down the hall, the soft click of her shoes on the marble floor echoing in the empty space. When she reached the conference room, she found Richard already there, standing by the large glass windows, looking out at the skyline. I've been thinking about everything, Richard said without turning around. You've done more for this company than I ever thought possible. But there's something I need to ask you, something I should have asked you weeks ago. Ava stood still, unsure of what was coming. She had seen Richard in many situations, confident, in control, always ready for the next challenge, but now he seemed vulnerable. He finally turned to face her. I don't know how to say this, but I want you to be more involved. Not just as a consultant or advisor. I want you to be a part of this company, a part of the team. You've earned it. Ava was taken aback. She had never expected this. She had come from nothing, had spent years cleaning floors, doing menial tasks that no one else wanted to do. And now Richard Thompson, the man who ran the company, wanted her to be a part of the very thing she had spent so long being invisible in. Richard, I don't know if I can. No, Richard interrupted gently. You're not hearing me. You don't need to explain. I want you to be part of the decision-making team. Your instincts, your insight, it's more valuable than I realized. We need that. Ava's heart raced. She hadn't prepared for this. She wasn't ready for this kind of responsibility, not in a million years. But the sincerity in Richard's eyes told her that he meant it. He wasn't offering her this because of some corporate strategy. He was offering her a chance to be seen for who she truly was, a person with worth, with value that went beyond her job title. You've been a janitor for so long, Ava, Richard said, his voice softening. But you've shown me that people like you, people who work in the background, who keep everything running smoothly, are the ones who really hold the power. I've seen that now. I'm asking you to be part of the team, not because of what you've done, but because of what you can do. Ava's mind was swirling. She didn't know how to respond. She had spent so long hiding, staying in the shadows, keeping her head down. But now, she had the chance to step into the light. I'll do it, she said quietly, her voice steady. But this is just the beginning. We've got a long way to go. Richard smiled, the first real smile she had seen in a long time. I know, and I'm glad you'll be with me. Ava sat in the conference room, her hands folded in front of her as Richard discussed the latest strategies with the team. The board members, once skeptical, were now listening closely. They had seen the impact of Ava's insights on the recent contract revisions, and there was no denying it. Her perspective had been invaluable. Richard, too, was a changed man. No longer the distant CEO, he had become more approachable, willing to listen to every suggestion, every idea, no matter where it came from. The room buzzed with ideas, but Ava remained quiet. She wasn't used to being in the spotlight, and though things had changed, she still felt out of place. She had always been comfortable in the background, invisible, where she could do her work without drawing attention. But now, that role was shifting. Richard turned to her, his eyes expectant. Ava, what do you think? He asked, his voice carrying across the room. Everyone stopped and looked at her, their eyes waiting. Ava hesitated. She had never been asked for her opinion in such a way before. The weight of their gaze was new, unfamiliar. She cleared her throat. I think we're missing a key part of the plan, she said, her voice steady, though her heart raced. The room fell silent. There's a tendency to focus only on the big picture, the immediate numbers. But we have to consider the long-term impact. We need to build trust with our partners, show them that we're not just about profits, but about stability and integrity. Richard nodded thoughtfully. Go on, he urged. Ava took a deep breath, the confidence growing inside her. The details matter. People will remember how we treat them when things aren't going well, not just when everything is running smoothly. If we handle the tough situations with honesty and transparency, we'll earn more than just business deals. We'll earn respect. The room was quiet for a moment as everyone processed what she had said. Richard leaned back in his chair, his eyes locked on her. You're absolutely right, he said finally. That's exactly what we've been missing. Trust. The other board members exchanged glances, nodding in agreement. Ava could feel the shift. She was no longer just an outsider. Her words had weight, and they were being heard. Richard smiled at her. Ava, I think you've just redefined our approach. We're not just selling products, we're selling integrity. For the first time, Ava felt the full force of the shift in her life. She had gone from cleaning floors to changing the direction of an entire company. But more than that, she had found her voice. And as the meeting ended and the board members began to file out of the room, Richard stopped her. I want you to be part of the team, Ava. For real this time. Her heart skipped. I'm already a part of it, she said, smiling. But I'll help. Whatever it takes. Ava stood in front of the building's sleek entrance, her eyes scanning the bustling streets below. The city was alive, and so was she. The transition from being the invisible cleaner to now being part of the core team had been faster than she could have ever imagined. It was overwhelming at times, but it felt right. Richard had been true to his word. He had pushed for her involvement, ensuring her voice was heard in every meeting. Her perspective was valued, and she wasn't just another employee, she was a partner. But despite the success and the acknowledgement, Ava had moments of doubt. She had never dreamed of working in a corporate environment, let alone leading important decisions. She had always thought of herself as just a cleaner, someone who had no business in the world of high-level corporate strategies. Yet here, she was, contributing to the company's success in ways she never thought possible. The phone in her pocket buzzed, pulling her from her thoughts. It was a message from Richard. Ava, we've got another big presentation coming up. The team is relying on your insights. Her heart raced. She had helped with the last few meetings, but this one was different. The stakes were higher. This was the chance to solidify her place in the company, to prove that she wasn't just filling a seat. She didn't respond immediately. Instead, she closed her eyes for a brief moment, taking in the weight of the situation. She had to trust herself. Richard believed in her. She had to believe in herself too. The elevator doors opened, and she stepped inside. As the doors closed, she took a deep breath, straightened her back, and focused. The meeting was in full swing when Ava arrived. The room was filled with executives, all looking up expectantly as she walked in. Richard gave her a small nod of encouragement, and she took her seat at the head of the table. This time, she wasn't just a spectator, she was leading the discussion. As the meeting progressed, Ava found her rhythm. She shared her analysis of the data, pointing out key areas where the company could grow. She didn't hesitate or second-guess herself. The room was silent as everyone listened. They had all seen the results of her work in the past, and now they were beginning to understand the depth of her expertise. As the presentation came to a close, Richard turned to the team. Ava's insights are the reason we're on track to make this deal happen, he said. We've been overlooking the details that matter most, but Ava has shown us the bigger picture. Ava didn't expect applause, but there was a shift in the room. The respect that had once been fleeting was now undeniable. The team was beginning to see her for who she truly was. Not just the cleaner, not just the outsider, but a powerful voice with the ability to drive real change. After the meeting, Richard approached her with a smile. You did it, he said. You've earned your place here, Ava. Don't ever doubt your value again. Ava felt a lump in her throat, but she smiled back. Thank you, Richard. I'm just getting started. Ava had come a long way from her days as a janitor, cleaning floors in silence, blending into the background of a world that seemed to ignore her existence. Now, she sat in a meeting room with some of the most powerful people in the company. Her ideas no longer just heard, but respected. Richard's trust in her had transformed not only her position in the company, but also the way she saw herself. She no longer doubted her worth. She knew that her voice had value, and the respect she earned wasn't just because of what she had done, it was because of who she was. The company had just closed one of its biggest deals yet, and Ava had been at the center of it all. Her insights, her understanding of the details others missed, had saved them from making costly mistakes. As she walked through the office after the meeting, the familiar hum of activity was no longer distant. It was now her world, too. People greeted her with nods and smiles, no longer just seeing her as someone who kept the office clean. They saw her as an equal. Richard caught her eye as she walked past his office. Ava, he called out, motioning for her to come inside. She hesitated for just a moment before entering. You did great today, Richard said, standing up from behind his desk. You've shown everyone that it's not about titles,